It was a time when Katoomba was a town of contrasts, a community of slab cottages, coal mines and luxury resorts. Mining was already in full swing in the Jamison Valley, and the Carrington Hotel, originally the Great Western Hotel, had already been taking guests for several years. The growing town had just elected its first mayor, Frederick Goyder, and on the main street, the newly arrived Sisters of Charity were preparing to open the region's first Catholic school. In 1901, the Sisters established Mount St Mary's Ladies' College within two former guest houses on Katoomba Street, Glen Eric and Hillside. It began as both a day and boarding school for young ladies, offering an education considered refined for the era. English, French, Latin and German, alongside maths, music, drawing, needlework and woodcarving. Attendance outgrew the school in no time, and a new substantial site was purchased opposite the newly built courthouse. In April 1909, the foundation stone for a new convent and college was laid, and construction moved quickly. By February 1910, the sisters and their students had moved into an imposing new three-storey building overlooking the town. It must have been quite the sight in those days. Proudly overlooking Katoomba town centre, directly opposite the Coffee Palace, and rivalling the grandeur of the Carrington Hotel across the railway line. Recessed colonnaded balconies and decorative stucco adorned its facade, and a central tower housed the main staircase. Terraced gardens softened the steep site. Stone retaining walls, winding paths and steps weaving through lawns, exotic trees and carefully tended shrubs. Decorative urns, a fountain, gazebo and even a grotto completed the scene. By 1920, the college briefly shifted to day students only, though boarding resumed again in 1926. During the Second World War, when many viewed the Blue Mountains as a safer refuge away from Sydney, enrolments of boarding students increased significantly. The school continued to evolve with the decades. A substantial four-storey extension rose on the western side in 1946, followed by a primary school bungalow in the 1950s, and a science block added during the 1960s. After the devastating Luro bushfires of 1957, Mount St Mary's once again became a place of refuge, temporarily housing displaced sisters and local residents left homeless by the disaster. In 1965, it became a regional girls' school, before transitioning to co-education just 2 years later. But changing times and dwindling enrolments gradually caught up with it. In 1974, after more than 70 years of education on the mountain, the college closed its doors. Then, in 1978, it was formally gifted to the Sydney Archdiocese to operate as a religious training and retreat facility. That arrangement only lasted several years. In 1984, the Board of Fire Commissioners issued a fire order on the ageing building, forcing its closure. The cost of upgrading the sprawling complex proved overwhelming, and the church sold the property the following year. By 1987, the old college had been reborn as the Renaissance Centre, an ambitious attempt to transform the abandoned school into a cultural and commercial hub for the mountains. Extensive renovations added new walkways and retail spaces. Inside were restaurants, handmade craftware, a gallery, art and craft workshops, a gym, tourist centre and even a museum dedicated to local history and colonial artefacts. The former school bungalow became home to a camera and photographic museum, while future plans promised a motel, cinema, theatre and concert hall. For a moment, it seemed the old building had found a new life. But the vision never fully materialised. The Renaissance Centre operated until 1992 when it sold to a Sydney developer. The second stage of development never happened, and tenants left one by one. Vacancy quickly gave way to vandalism and decay. Locals increasingly feared for the building's future, and in 2002, a community action group successfully campaigned for heritage protection, achieved the following year. Even so, repeated sales attempts failed to spark restoration. A development application came and went, including plans for over 100 apartments, yet nothing ever eventuated. Fires only deepened the decline. One in 2003 damaged parts of the central tower, while another in 2010 destroyed the detached school bungalow entirely, leaving behind little more than its lonely brick chimney. Stories still circulate of a mysterious tunnel that ran from Mount St Mary's to Katoomba station. Was it an air raid shelter or escape passage from the war years? Does it even exist? Allegedly, one does actually exist, spanning from the field behind the old building, running east beneath the railway line to a bricked-up portal in a house in the vicinity of Glenview Street. Today, Mount St Mary's sits behind monitored fencing, slowly festering away. Windows smashed, interiors charred and vandalised, gardens once carefully manicured now wild and overgrown. Yet despite it all, the building still carries an undeniable presence. Bold and grand in appearance, yet a sad shadow of its former self, standing by the highway like a fading memory of another era.